First Man. So First Man's directed by Damien Chazelle. He directed Whiplash. He directed La La Land. It stars Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong is first man to walk on the moon, hence the title. But this isn't necessarily the story of the Apollo 11 mission, though we do see it. It's the story of all the drama and the bumps in the road leading to landing on the moon. See, when something happens that is a worldwide televised event that's described as one giant leap for mankind, it's easy to concentrate on the end product and overlook the bumps, bruises, blood, sweat, and tears that were shed to get there. So now we get a peek behind the curtain into that story. Ryan Gosling, of course, is great in this movie. He's great, period. He does still do the Ryan Gosling thing. That is, Ryan Gosling can have the most screen time with the fewest lines in a movie. What can I say? The dude comes across as very stoic a lot of the time. But that might be in character for Neil Armstrong. I don't know what Neil Armstrong was like, but in this movie, he comes across as very binary. Looks like in this movie, he was created by design to be very calculating and very mathematical. Which means, although he does show emotional tension in the movie, when the stress of the entire ordeal is coming down on the family, Claire Foy plays his wife. She does a really good job too. A lot of it falls on her to show how stressful the situation is. Neil Armstrong looks like he's on emotional lockdown for a lot of the movie. So she's the one showing a lot of the emotional tears, and I like the fact that it showed that this weight on their shoulders isn't just on the astronauts. It's on the family of the astronauts too. It's a big weight to carry. But my favorite element of the movie is just the technical aspect of it. At a point I started seeing like film grain and film speckle in the movie. I was like, is this 35 millimeter? Sometimes it looked like 16 millimeter. I don't know if they used 16 millimeter or 35 millimeter possibly to make it look like 16 millimeter. Point is, it looked a little grainier than usual. I'm not saying that as like the movie didn't look crisp. I'm saying I like the fact that it looked a little grainy. It looked like something from the time. If you film a movie that's supposed to take place in the 60s in super crisp digital, it'll still feel like the 60s, sure. But if you make the quality of the film look like it's from the 60s rather than 2018, it's just one more element of immersion you have. You're not only telling a story of a time, but it also looks like it's a movie from the time. And that was a nice detail, I appreciate it. But for the lunar sequence, that was filmed with IMAX. And if you see this movie in an IMAX theater, you will see it. The contrast of the grainy 35 millimeter that we got leading up to the IMAX clarity, it's actually pretty awe-inspiring. There was not a sound in the theater when it happened. It was crazy. At some degree, I kind of know what my grandmother felt like when she first saw The Wizard of Oz and Dorothy walks out of her black and white house and everything's in color. I understand it's not going to be exactly that, but still, same kind of feeling. Also, I have no idea what is CGI and what's practical. There are so many shots in this movie that's like the Top Gun angle, you know, camera on the wing, aiming back at the tail, and you see the clouds and the earth spinning behind it, but those clouds get really small because they go really high. Seeing that transition of when it's daytime and the blue of sky turns to black, it's effective. I don't know if it's real. I don't know. Also, scenes in pretty much any cockpit. There were a lot of test runs that happened before we were actually like, all right, let's go to the moon. And in any cockpit scene, which this movie pretty much starts out with one of them, it is unsettling. It feels like what it pretty much actually is. Someone strapped to a garbage can, they're just being launched. The sound is comparable to when the velociraptors were being fed in the original Jurassic Park, mixed with explosions. Like, it's a really unsettling sound. You're like, we're probably gonna die. A lot of shaky cam too, but this isn't an action sequence. It's not like you're supposed to have everything framed up. All right, let me see the action. Why is it shaky cam? It's supposed to be shaky. It's supposed to be unsettling. You're supposed to be in the cockpit, and that's how it is. You're not flying on Virgin America first class here. It's gonna get bumpy. The movie successfully walks the tricky line of asking, was it worth it? People died so we could go to the moon to essentially tell Russia, ha! We did it first. So you have to just stop and be like, is it worth these people no longer being around, no longer existing? They're no longer alive. However, while asking that question, it doesn't undercut the scope of the gravity of the situation of we went to the moon. That's inspired generations of people to come. That's the stuff that dreams are made of. That expands imagination. It makes people go, hey, what's next? I guess Mars over half a century later. One thing the movie doesn't portray or do so well is show the passage of time. This whole story takes place in the span of about 8 years, and at the beginning of the movie, his wife goes from not pregnant to now he has a kid. And in that time, he's on what seems like day 2 of his space training. But it can't be day 2, we're on like month 9. When you really sit down and look at it, this whole movie takes place in the span of 8 years. It does not feel like 8 years at all. I do feel like this movie's not the drama it wanted to be. Like, it's not as impactful as it aimed for. And I don't know if that's because Neil Armstrong's one of the most stoic people in US history, or if it's because Ryan Gosling portrayed Neil Armstrong as one of the most stoic people in cinematic history. I don't know Neil Armstrong. I never met him. I haven't talked to his family. Quite possible that Neil Armstrong just doesn't lend himself to drama because he's a very stoic, mathematical person who doesn't show emotion. Even when you see the emotion at home, it doesn't hit you in the heart. It just more or less makes you nod like, yeah, I'm glad they addressed that. So it's a very interesting movie. It's a fascinating look behind the curtain. Very intense when you're in the cockpit. I just feel like this movie should have hit me in the feels a little more. Maybe I'm heartless. I humor that. Guys, in the end, First Man was really enjoyable. It was a dramatic peek behind the curtain of the legend of the event, the legend of the man. You see the humanity see. And I love that. I love the fact that the people who are deemed heroes, they're still human beings. They're flawed human beings like the rest of the onlooker flawed human being. And I like it when a movie explores that. The movie does have a 2-hour, 20-minute runtime, so be prepared for a 2-hour, 20-minute drama. But I will say First Man's really enjoyable, really good time, no alcohol required. All right, so First Man, have you seen it? What did you think about it? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know. Or do you think Elon Musk is actually going to Mars, or do you think he's going to the asteroids to bring an asteroid back so we can be the world's first zillionaire? Come on, that's really what he's doing. And as always, if you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more.